Trying to do stuff can be hard because it doesn't always work out. Well, I'm interested in anyone trying to make themselves or the world a better place. So join me, Chris Wright, as we explore people just simply trying to do interesting stuff. And hey, hopefully the next time you try to do something, it's a little more likely to happen. All right, now it's time to try the podcast. Yeah, that works. Alrighty, here we are again, November 9th. I like to say the date. For this episode, the one that I've just previously recorded, and none of these will go in any sort of order. Julius insists on having a number, and so maybe that's like a podcast thing, but when I'm doing these, I don't think of them going sequentially. You know, maybe I'll reference, oh, you should probably go listen to that, but I'm not sitting here thinking somebody's going to be on like episode 11 and waiting for number 12, and that I'm somehow like designing your life. You're meant to like jump around with all of this. It's a lot like a book Tim Ferriss wrote. Let me look at it. I'm looking at my bookshelf. I decided not to go to the basement drum room today because my house is empty. I'm alone, and it's like really nice outside. Now, Tim Ferriss, he wrote a book, and I think it was called Tools of Titans. I can't quite see it, but essentially it's a bunch of interviews that he's done, and he's, a well-known podcaster, basically about people's stories around success. So he interviewed Arnold Schwarzenegger, all sorts of folks, and that's the way that I view this podcast. Like, not all of you will want a used Tesla right now, but some of you might, or maybe you have a friend that wants a used Tesla. So I just bought one, I'm going to say 2 weeks ago, whenever the World Series was, is when it arrived, which is what I was just talking about. So let's start in. I actually did write a roadmap for this so that it'll have a little bit of structure. I'd like to begin by talking about my history of car ownership. So I'm somebody that, we haven't really got into the frugality that I attempt to live my life by, but essentially when you buy a car, it's not an investment that goes up in value. Now, that word investment is a really funny word. The last time I bought a bicycle, the guy selling me the bicycle said, oh, it's such an investment in your health, investment in your health. So what is a car? A car is an investment in your ability to travel from point A to point B. That's simply all that it is. It serves literally no other function unless you're going to be an Uber driver or a Lyft driver, etc. And so when you have a family, you care about things like safety, reliability, and you think about maintenance costs, and you think about, what it's doing to the planet to have all of these kind of oil and gas burning automobiles on the road. And so it was probably 3 or 4 years ago when someone arranged to have a Tesla brought out to the Google office here in Boulder. And you could sign up your name to go out on a test drive. And, we'd all heard about the cars, but a lot of America had not heard about the cars. It was kind of this crazy, kooky, everybody in Silicon Valley seemed to know about it and what Elon Musk was up to, but it hadn't really gone mainstream. And so the car shows up and I put my name on the list, and my dad happened to be here as well. And the first time I sat in this is the Model S. That's the only one that existed in like 2013, 2014. The first time you sit in that and you kind of punch it, there's like this tiny delay, and then the thing just shoots out from under you. I mean, it throws your back into the seat, and it's almost like you're hanging on for dear life, and you're like, whoa. Like, I didn't think cars really work that way. There's a video that somebody sent me today where a Model 3, which was kind of a lower level, I guess, it's a cheaper car than the Model S, is drag racing a Camaro and beating it just handsomely. It's not even a close contest, just how fast the pickup is on these cars. But if you remember the Tesla launch back in, 2013, 2012, around that time, they were incredibly expensive cars. I mean, it was not unheard of for somebody to spend $100,000 on a car. I think the lowest off the lot price might be around $80,000. That's way, way, way out of my price range. Not to mention, I was like, it only seats 5, and I have 3 kids, and they're all super young. Right now, they're 7, 4, and almost 2. So it's just not practical for us. And so I drove home in my Honda CR-V, which that's a car that we really, really loved. And then to accompany the Honda CR-V, which was already a 5-passenger car, I should tell you a little bit more about my history. The Honda CR-V I bought used at 110,000 miles. And that bothers a lot of people. Like, people are just like, why would you possibly buy a car at 110,000 miles? Well, once you get that 100,000 mile, it's like a check-in, it's a service, et cetera, et cetera. If the car is running pretty good, then chances are it'll continue to run pretty good for at least another 50,000 miles or so. At least that's been my experience. And that reminds me of a time when I bought a rather expensive television before the LEDs came out. This was a long time ago. My roommate, Jason, we were at a Best Buy. We didn't have a cool big TV for our apartment. And I said, I'll buy it. It'll be mine. We'll both use it. And then I'll carry it on with me, as we travel through life. And the Best Buy salesman, he's like, this is true. It's been proven. If your television works really well for the first 3 years, chances are it's going to work for the next 100 years. So I have to believe he was getting that research and logic from somewhere. And I've kind of applied that when buying used stuff in general. If it's in good shape and it's used, then it should continue to be in good shape, provided that I take care of the car. So that Honda CR-V, we drove that from that 110,000 miles all the way up to, I want to say 170, maybe even 180. So that was a lot of miles to put on that car. I probably paid $11,000 or $13,000 for that car, and that was the most expensive car I ever bought. Previously, I had a pickup truck. I paid $8,000 for the pickup. I bought it at 105,000 miles, and it was about 10 years old. My brother Tommy now drives it around Salt Lake. So if you see a red 1995 Toyota pickup with a white topper in Salt Lake City, you can say that, that's Tommy. Call him Tommy. He likes to try to go by Tom now. Oh, and he's a doctor, so he's like Dr. Wright. Okay, just call him Tommy. So that's the history of my cars. Because we had the CR-V, we wanted something with a third row. So we test drove a whole bunch of options, and the CR-V was more my wife's car. And so the Honda Pilot was basically my car. So we get a Honda Pilot. Now that one, I actually went lighter on the miles. I think I bought that with about 65,000 miles. And it was just a good price. I think I paid around $20,000. The guy showed me how much he paid, and he's like, they can't all be winners. It's been on the lot too long. He could have been messing with me. Who knows? Whoever knows, right? I know that buying a used car, but he showed me paperwork. He's like, I paid $23,000 for it. I'm giving it to you for, it was either 20 or 21. And then we were set. We were like, okay, we have a Pilot with a third row. We have a Honda CR-V. We're ready. We're ready to do this. And then over the holidays, every time we travel, my wife gets into a minivan. We rent a minivan, and she just loves it. She's not a particularly tall person, and she just loves that the doors slide. And so she started making comments this past Christmas holiday. She'd go, every time she saw a minivan, she'd go, look at those sliding doors. Go to pick up the kid at the daycare. Look at those sliding doors. Oh, they just slide forward and they slide backward. Oh my gosh, I just can't believe how amazing minivans are. And I'm like, well, the CR-V's at 160 or 180,000 miles. Okay. I decide I'm going to surprise her, and I go out and buy her a used minivan. And now you're going to sense a trend here. I went a little even newer on the used minivan because our kids are 7, 4, and 2. This thing's got to last the next decade. So I bought one. I think we bought it at about 30 or 35,000 miles. And that was a rather expensive car. I mean, I think that one, it was probably $30,000, maybe 30 or 32. It was somewhere around 30. And I thought, okay, now we're set. Now we are set. She has the minivan she always wanted. It's a 7-passenger. It's all-wheel drive, a Toyota, Sienna. Now I've got the Honda Pilot. So then our friends come over. Our friends, Ivan and Amanda, super awesome people. We were doing a little, dinner at our house. And Ivan just bought, I think, a brand new Model S, and it's black, and it just looked sick. I said, hey, would you mind if I drove it to pick up our Indian food? And Natasha later told me, she's like, you can't ask people if you can just drive their Teslas. Like, you shouldn't be doing that. I was like, well, sorry. So Ivan was like, yeah, dude, here you go. So I drove in this thing solo, and I already kind of remembered, there are a couple little quirks to driving the thing, but I remembered them from my previous experience. And so I drive, and it's super fun and awesome. And his sound system was really great. He paid for the upgraded sound. It was so good. And I was, listening to Soundgarden way too loudly, driving down to an Indian restaurant. Coming back, I may or may not have gone over the speed limit by about 40 miles per hour. But it was only for like 2 seconds, because once you get in a Tesla, you kind of have to see what it'll do when you push down on it. It's just really fun. So Ivan goes, why don't you get one of these? And I go, number one is the cost. Number two, we have cars with what I consider to be low mileage. Both of the cars are below 100,000 miles. I was like, someday I'll get one. In my mind, I was like 5 years out, 10 years out. Just someday I want to go full electric car because I have solar panels on my roof. Number two, Google has free charging. So if I had an electric car, I'd be charging it for free. I would have removed, purchasing gas from my life, which is fun. Gas stations aren't that great. They kind of smell like gasoline. You get it on your hands. You're stepping in it. You can't even smoke there anymore. Come on. So anyway, I am sitting there, and then I end with, I've got a family of 5. I really like the 7-passenger, 8-passenger vehicles for airport pickups, for, throwing another kid in the car, that sort of thing. And Ivan says, well, you realize that a Tesla has an option where there are 2 rear-facing jump seats. And I go, no, you just blew my mind. There are. He starts pulling out his phone, and we're doing Google searches. And sure enough, you lift up, and this is in a Model S. That's like the sports car. That's the fast one. That's the expensive one. You lift it up, and there are 2 rear-facing seats there for kids. And it's like a 5-point harness, just like a car seat, really. It's not a shoulder strap. And once I saw that, I was like, oh my gosh, amazing. So I go to work and I still wasn't sold on the idea, but now my only barrier, and I'm a marketer business guy. Now my only real barrier was cost. I said, I just don't want to throw a bunch of money at this. And I didn't want the hassle of trying to sell my Pilot, because the Pilot was fine, but it's kind of a gas guzzler. It's like 18 miles per gallon or something. It has an economy mode, but it's not a hybrid car or anything. And that's when I thought to myself, where are there going to be the cheapest used Teslas? My immediate reaction, the Bay Area and Los Angeles. So right now, I'm speaking sideways. I might sound a little bit different. We're going to go to Craigslist and try to find the cheapest Model S, just to prove my point. I was really astounded at how low the cost was on some of these. It's really came down. So here we are, Craigslist. Let's try Bay Area. I could have done this in advance, but then you wouldn't get the authentic typing sounds, All right, Craigslist Bay Area. Now I'm going to say Tesla. Model S right now. Whoops, not Model 2, Model S. Let's see what we find. 2014, I'm going to price 2013. Here's a 2013 for 43 grand. Remember, these were $100,000 cars. I want to find one that's from an owner and not a dealer, because sometimes those rates are a little bit better. The lowest I've ever found to date has been 30 grand, 30. So $30,000 for a used Tesla. I'm seeing a lot of 50s and 60s in here. I'm going to put I'm going to put 2013 in as well. I think I'm seeing a lot of 2015s and such. There we go. $36,500. 2013 Tesla Model S tech package, unlimited mile warranty. Let's see what else he has to say. Car is in mint condition, has the tech package, leather, premium sound, adjustable air suspension, 75,000 miles, unlimited powertrain warranty from Tesla for another 3 years. It's a rare chocolate brown color, which really stands out from all the other Teslas on the road. This car has all the commission issues already addressed. 36.5, people. You can't even buy a Model 3 today for 36.5. Look at this. Okay. Here's $35,000, 2013 Model S. It's got the smaller battery, the 60 kilowatt battery. Oh, I just beat my record, $29,900 for 2013. Okay, that's currently the lowest Model S I've seen. Let me pull this up. Rear wheel drive, condition is excellent. Oh, odometer, 146,000 miles. I think it is absolutely comical that people would evaluate a Tesla based on mileage, because there's no motor. It's a battery that runs on electricity. I shouldn't say there's a motor, there's no engine, there's no oil, there's no oil changes with it. Nobody really knows how far these things are going to go. But then when you do some Google searches, there are plenty of people that have put 700,000 miles on these things. I think that somebody's crossed the 1 million mile mark. Okay, so now I've proven that they are tenable. When I say tenable, like you could buy a $30,000 Tesla. All you have to do is then get on a plane and go to LA or the Bay Area, which is exactly what I did. So let's go back to my story. And then if there's time at the end here, let me write this down so I don't forget. We were going to look for highest mileage on a Tesla. The story I remember was a guy going back and forth from LA to Vegas every single day. And he hit 300,000 miles in 1 year or something crazy and had no problems. He said, I still have not paid for maintenance on this car. And he hit 300,000 miles. So back to my story, and here's where I'm reading through my checklist. We talked about my friend. We talked about Craigslist. I basically chose 3 cars, and mileage was not a factor for me. What I was interested in, here's my list. The rear-facing jump seats, that's a tough one to find, because I think that's a $6,000 to $8,000 upgrade, and not a lot of people wanted it. So that was a deal breaker, which, all of a sudden, now 80% of the inventory is off for me because of that reason alone. That was essentially all I wanted. I did really want all-wheel drive, but then I was reading about it. And they're like, even the rear wheel drive, because the car is so heavy, it tends to do pretty well in snow. All-wheel drive is now standard on Teslas, which is interesting. What else I came to find while reading through all these Craigslist posts, these earlier Tesla cars from 2012, 13, 14, 15, 16, all the way up until this year, you get unlimited charging at the Tesla supercharger stations. Those things are popping up everywhere. Unlimited free charging for the life of the car. And that travels with the car when I buy it used, which is pretty ridiculous. So I will never pay to charge this thing. I reached out to 3 people. The first one never got back to me. The second person responded to me immediately. And then the third, he had a bunch of questions for me and he was busy, and it was my least favorite of the car. I think it was a white color, and I was like, it's just going to get dirty if it's white. So let's get back to the guy who calls me. His name, his Gmail address was like Big Mike something at Gmail. And I'm like, who is this guy? A lot of people would not put a vehicle identification number, the VIN number, on Craigslist ad, but this guy did. And it was a really professionally written note. So of course I Google search the VIN number and I see that he's trying to sell this car all over the place. eBay Motors. There's car sales sites I didn't even know existed. I also see that the price has come down over time. It started in like, I want to say, I don't even remember the highest. I won't quote the highest price because I'm pretty sure I saw it. And then he immediately said it was never listed that high. Anyway, long story short, a couple of conflicting info. On one of the ads for the car, it said celebrity owned. And I'm like, this is going to be a hilarious call. It's probably a scam. But the guy calls me and he's like, one of the first things about scams is that they are typically very reluctant to call you. And he starts to explain. He's in the used car and motorcycle business. He has a motorcycle shop. He's down outside LA. He's like an hour from Burbank, actually. It was kind of a hassle to get to him. And he just goes, I'm helping a friend sell the car because I'm really good at it and my friend isn't. And I go, well, what's this nonsense about celebrity owned? Who owned the car? And he goes, oh, so it's owned by Mel Gibson's daughter. And I think, okay, I mean, that's kind of a stretch, but Googled her later. Like, apparently she acted in some movies with her father, Mel Gibson. So if you've seen that movie, What Women Want, it's Mel Gibson and Helen Hunt. I think that the daughter in there is actually Mel Gibson's daughter. I don't want to take the time to prove that. You can all tell me that I'm wrong. I'm pretty sure that that's her. And now apparently, you know, she does like some makeup design and artist stuff like that. But he goes on and he goes, you know, but actually the celebrity is her husband. He's a blues musician. And I go, interesting. I love blues music, by the way. So when I was in college, I went to every blues show that came through town, whether or not I'd heard of them or not. Then I started teaching myself blues harmonica. That was all based on the Blues Brothers movie, which I got to watch for the first time in junior high school, probably the 7th grade, 8th grade. Bought all the Blues Brothers records. And then while listening to Dan Aykroyd talk about all these blues musicians, I would go off and hunt them down and just try to learn. For a couple of years, I subscribed to the Blues Music magazine, and that was a lot of fun. So for instance, I have a photograph of B.B. King. I got to shake his hand once and get a pic from him. Same with Buddy Guy, John Mayall I met, Charlie Musselwhite, James Cotton I've met. I'm trying to think, did I meet Taj Mahal? I haven't met Taj Mahal or Bonnie Raitt. But anyway, I really love that music. I love all music, but especially have, you know, heart for blues music. So I just can't even make this up. I go, so who's this celebrity blues musician? And he goes, oh, it's Kenny Wayne Shepherd. And I'm like, you've got to be kidding me. Not only have I paid real money for 2 of his CDs, back when you had to pay money for a CD, I got to see Kenny Wayne Shepherd live in the year 2000 at the University of Montana. And I know that it was the year 2000 because I still had the ticket stub. So I'm laughing. I'm like, you've got to be kidding me. So we start to negotiate on cost a little. And he goes, look, we just dropped the car by another $6,000. I think this is as low as Kenny's going to go. I said, that's totally fair, but I have to ask for a little bit more, or otherwise I wouldn't be, you know, a good negotiator. He goes, I get it. Let's try to shave a little bit more off. I think I said, drop it by another $3,000. They come back to me. They met in the middle, you know, shaved a little bit off. And then he goes, it comes with 2 autographs as well. And I just started laughing. I'm like, oh, that's so cool. So anyway, my mom happened to already be coming out here to watch my kids so that my wife and I could celebrate our wedding anniversary. We've been married 9 years. And instead of going down to like dinner in Denver or something, we got on a plane and went straight to Burbank Airport to meet Big Mike and for me to buy Kenny Wayne Shepherd's car. You know, and the cost is essentially the same as a brand new minivan. I know people that have paid more for their brand new minivans than my Model S. Let me describe the car to you. This car has only 25,000 miles on it. I think Kenny Wayne Shepherd went for every one of the upgrades you could get. Of course, the sound upgrade, the rear-facing jump seats. He also paid to have this protective element. He called it a clear bra. I have it on my other cars, but only on specific places. He has it all the way around the car. It's clear that a lot went into this. I even got to meet the guy, and I'm sitting in the back of Kenny Wayne Shepherd's Tesla with Kenny Wayne Shepherd. And he's looking at the ceiling. He's like, that used to be black plastic. And then I found out that the new ones had the felt to match the rest of the car. So I demanded that they fix that for me. He's a very particular guy about cars. So we're taking a lift, my wife and I, sorry to keep getting sidetracked. We go out there and we're just like waiting and waiting and waiting. We were supposed to meet at 11. Pretty soon it's 11:30 and I'm texting Big Mike. I'm like, where are you guys? Where are you guys? Well, the car has sort of been in the shop all week because they were having a problem downgrading the newest software. They're like, oh, if somebody's buying this, let's wipe it, do a factory reset, and let's get the brand new Tesla software on it, which I'm like, oh, that's great. That's amazing. I love that you can upgrade your whole car through software instead of hardware, which would be the case for my Honda Pilot. And so we're waiting, and then 2 hours go by, and Natasha's my wife. She's like, at what point do we give up, or do we think this is a scam, or whatnot? And I'm like, I don't think it's a scam. So then I call Big Mike, and I'm like, Big Mike, if Kenny Wayne Shepherd is just hanging out at the Tesla dealership, asking them every hour, is it done yet? Can we just go out there and wait with him? And he's like, oh, sure. Oh, novel idea. So we go out there and there's Kenny Wayne Shepherd sort of in like some gym clothes, tank top, and he's like stretching oddly against like a light pole or a lamp post outside the Tesla shop. Could not possibly have been a nicer guy. Just the nicest my wife doesn't care about celebrities or blues music or any of that. So she's just talking him up. And how are the kids? He's got a bunch of kids. So I think his wife wanted him to get rid of the Tesla. He now has this huge van to haul his kids around in. But we also learned about him is that he collects cars, kind of like Jay Leno. But he only does a particular kind of car. I think it's called Mopar. I should look that up. Oh, I hate when I have to look things up because it's taking away from your precious time. But Mopar cars. So those are all made in Detroit. Here it is. Mopar is, they're within the Fiat Chrysler. So I think that you like a Charger would be a Mopar car. I'll put muscle car in here too. Muscle cars. Let's see, what brands do we have? What brand is a Mopar muscle car? Okay, where I'm going right now is Kenny Wayne Shepherd's website, which is kennywayneshepherd.net. And what's really interesting, yes, he's a blues musician, but at the top, you can click on cars and you can see all the cars that he has. I'm going to start reading some of these off. 2010 Dodge Challenger, SRT8, 1972 Dodge Charger, 1970 Plymouth Duster, 1969 Extreme Lee, 1950 Ford Business Coupe Hot Rod. And he has a new one that just looks really cool. I don't know the name of it. It's not on the website yet. But if you follow him on Instagram, you can see the new car. He was telling me about this new car he got. They only made 3,000 of them and like 300 went to Canada. It's like some crazy $80,000 sports car. So anyway, I think that his wife was like, you can be into that style of car, but the Tesla now serves no purpose, which is why it's so low mileage. And anyway, I paid only about $900 to have it shipped back. If I didn't have kids, I would have just driven it back. The one thing I don't have in this world is time. Time is the single first thing. So anyway, the Tesla gets shipped to me. It literally arrives at 12:30. And at 12:33, I hopped in it and drove off to go to the World Series, right back to LA, because my friend, gave me a ticket. So it's been like a really good couple of weeks. All right, let's go back to the narrative. So now I've got the car. I'm still learning about it. I'm still making mistakes with it. But by and large, I'm really happy with it. I'm going to give the Honda Pilot to my in-laws because they need a new car that is all-wheel drive. So that worked out really, really well. There are a couple other parts of this story that I think you might find interesting. And I'm sorry that this is such a long episode when you're really like, dude, just tell me how to buy a used Tesla. I'll top line it. I'll make it really easy in like the intro paragraph. I'm like, go to Craigslist. It's not that hard. That's kind of the takeaway right there. As part of this decision, though, I texted my dad. I go, hey, Dad, I told all my brothers too. I was like, guys, I really think I'm going to buy a Tesla. I'm going to actually do it because it has rear-facing jump seats. And I sent them a picture. And my dad goes, what would Mr. Money Mustache think of that? Now, if you remember my first intro episode, I start talking about Mr. Money Mustache because he's just somebody who's been around a while. He's all about frugal living. He's about early retirement. And essentially the name of his blog is Early Retirement Through Badassity. And he's just funny. I'm way behind on my Mr. Money Mustache reading. He just put out some really good stuff. So anyway, I text back to my dad and I go, I don't know. Why don't I ask him? Now, I've never reached out to Mr. Money Mustache before. He's talked about just how much fan mail he gets. Right on the website, it says, you know what? I will absolutely read every email that comes in. I can't reply to very many. It says that. So my expectations were low. But I described the whole situation with Tesla because I knew that he loves Teslas, because he's written about them in the past. And he replied to me, and it was amazing. It was a very long, thoughtful email. And so, let me just look. Mr. Money Mustache. I should have had this up already, but the fact that he replied to me, that's cooler than probably any sports athlete, I think. I was just like, I can't believe it. He goes, "Hey, Chris, nice to hear from you. And thanks for reading. Cool story about the journey from Montana to California to good old Lafayette." He goes, "Yeah, I can follow your logic on the Tesla. Where are you finding those prices?" He goes, "My first standard disclaimer is that spending, say, 35 grand on a car is not a frugal move, despite free charging, or a practical one, and it won't make you any happier than a less expensive one. Although, if you really do have 4 to 5 kids and need to drive them all around in a box simultaneously, it is one of the few vehicles that can do it." And then he says, disclaimer over. And then he goes, "On the fun side, if you have a Google tech income and you're already close to retirement, it wouldn't break the bank." Yeah, he's like, fine. He goes, "Even I will probably buy a Tesla once I have a use for it. For me, this means sometimes that I can displace a portion of my domestic air travel." That's what everybody's excited about with Tesla is at some point, 5 years from now, who knows, they're going to design a car where you can sleep in the car. You're going to lay down in the car. I can type in Montana. My folks live outside Glacier National Park. So I could type in Columbia Falls, Montana, fall asleep at nighttime and wake up and be there and not pay. Tickets are insane. It's like $500 to $800 to go from Denver to Kalispell because there's only one airline. It's United. I can get to Missoula pretty cheaply on Frontier. But anyway, that's what people are waiting for with these Teslas. And I think that's why if anybody wants one now, you're going to get a good deal on it because the next Tesla, right? The next Tesla version is always that much more interesting that most people want the newest, the latest and greatest. So for instance, mine right now, my car does not have the right hardware to ever do the autopilot stuff. So that's part of why these prices are so low. It's not the autopilot Tesla, but it is super fast, super awesome. And I'd encourage you to look into it if you haven't already. And I'm going to take this one step further. Before I do that, though, let's see. Finding it cheaply, talk about the Craigslist ad. Okay. There's a movie being made, a documentary, and the documentary is called Playing with Fire. I'd encourage you to look at that. Fire, again, in an earlier episode, I talked about it. Fire is financially independent, retire early. So that's the path that I'm on. That's the path that I talk about with a lot of people. There's a lot of people that can talk about it better than I can. That's why my podcast is not solely on financial independence. I haven't even recorded any of my financial independence notes yet, but you can go, Mr. Money Mustache is good. Mad Fientist is good. The Minimalists are good. And so a guy basically went out and he made a documentary interviewing all of them. And I've referenced it before, but I would go watch the movie trailer. I am a Kickstarter participant, so I participated at a level that allows my name to be in the credits. So you'll see Chris Wright, Try the Podcast in the credits of this movie when it comes out. It comes out in early 2019, either January or February. So that's kind of fun. So because now apparently I'm fearless and I get responses from Mr. Money Mustache, I'm like, well, I'm going to reach out to the Fire crew. And they wrote back to me too. Oh my gosh. I'm not going to bore you with searching for his email, but essentially like the director of the film, like the guy who is behind the whole thing. And he's one of the protagonists in the movie. The documentary is about him quitting his job. And the message is basically that the math of the money side of it makes sense. It's the psychology of giving up a career, giving up a job, feeling unemployed. I'm really excited to explore that part of the movie because all of the stock investing side, dividends like diversification, low cost Vanguard index funds. I understand all of that. That's very rational to me. But the psychology around stepping away is what I'm fascinated by. For instance, I have 2 parents. My wife has 2 parents. All of them have jobs. All of them are working right now. I don't think retirement's even in their scope. And they're between, I'm going to say 59 and 65. My dad's 65. So it's a real thing. And I've started asking more and more people if their parents are retired. I don't get many answers of people's parents retiring. It's like the answers typically range from no to I'm scared to I'm semi-retired to I tried to retire, but then they still wanted me to work. So I figured why not? Because I like my job. But what I'm really trying to do is get more help for my kids so that I can record more, podcast episodes. It's all about me at the end of the day. No, I'm just kidding. All right. So where are we with our story? I think that we've covered it for the most part. I'm trying to think of any other weird, quirky, fun notes about buying a car or a Tesla specifically. I don't think so. Let's pause for a second because I've been talking so much. I wanted to play a little bit of Kenny Wayne Shepherd for you because a lot of people haven't heard him. He has a lot of hits in my mind, but I think that the most well-known song is Blue on Black. So let's hear a little bit of Blue on Black.
Skin
So there's Blue on Black. I mean, that song, I hear it on some classic rock stations, some contemporary stations. I want you to hear what a good blues guitarist he is. Well, here's what's funny. I remember when I saw Kenny Wayne Shepherd, I didn't realize how young he was. His story, I should probably look up his history. The story I heard was that he was kind of a guitar just phenom, and was discovered when he was in his teens, and that he opened for the Eagles when he was 17 years old. He was the opening act. But one of his heroes in life was Stevie Ray Vaughan, who's passed away. When I follow him on Instagram, I see him hanging out with all the guitar greats, you know, people like Buddy Guy and Eddie Van Halen. So my experience in watching him, there was this young, you know, blonde haired, he has very long blonde hair. And when I saw him in the year 2000, I thought that the lead singer was Kenny Wayne Shepherd, because obviously the lead singer is out front, out center, you know, doing their thing. 2 songs in, my buddy goes, I think that guitarist, the young guitarist, is Kenny Wayne Shepherd. And then we verified it, we confirmed it. And I was like, oh my gosh, amazing. I think Kenny Wayne Shepherd has started singing now, but he didn't really sing much. At least I didn't remember him singing when I attended that show in the year 2000. The other thing I didn't realize, if it's the year 2000, that would put me at about 20 years old. I was probably a sophomore in college. Kenny Wayne Shepherd is only 41 today. So that means he was like 23, touring nationally, going from state to state. I was joking with him when I got to meet him. I was like, how does this Tesla handle in the snow? And he goes, there's no snow around here. I was like, well, I thought maybe you'd go skiing or something like that. And he's like, I can't ski, I can't snowboard, because if I fall and break my wrist, I'm out of work for 10 months. I thought that was pretty funny that he said that. Let's play one more clip of Kenny, though, because I really want you to hear just how good he is when he's just wailing on a blues solo. So I'm going to find something really special, and here it is. Now I just want to go and watch Kenny Wayne Shepherd play music. He's been really cool throughout this. He keeps emailing me. He's probably emailed me like 6 times. Little tips about the Tesla, little things. Hey, did you get it? Everything cool? Did it check out? It's just really nice of him to respond to me. I don't know. I'm such a fan. Next time he comes to Denver, we'll definitely have to go and see him. He said he hasn't been here for about 2 or 3 years. So maybe we're on the list. So to start ending the show, I want to talk about a Craigslist ad that I found a couple weeks ago. I didn't bookmark it, unfortunately. That was my earlier record-holding car for the cheapest. It was $30,000. And what the seller wrote, I thought was really interesting. It basically said, 30 grand is what I will get for this car as part of any trade-in program. Therefore, I'd rather sell it for 30 grand to somebody who's going to love the car. So here's my message to all of you. How do we promote more of that kind of thinking? Because presumably there's a lot of people with Teslas who have more money than they know what to do with. I think that that's a lot of people, to be honest. Wouldn't those people rather give their cars to really deserving people that are going to love the car? So my buddy Josh, you're going to hear from Josh. Josh is trying to start like a new fitness brand, a new fitness company. If you're a Tesla owner out there and you hear Josh's story on the podcast and you want to give him your old Tesla because you're getting a new one, just reach out to me, chris@trythepodcast.com. On the flip side, if you actually do need money for your car, that's totally fine. Well, what would you sell it for? 10 grand, 15, 5 grand, $200? Like, what's your price? Email me and just put the subject something like, I have a Tesla or I need a Tesla. So for those of you out there that you just can't afford it, it's a money thing, let me know. And on the flip side, you're trying to get rid of your car, let me know. And maybe I'll build a little thing into the website where it's kind of like a matchmaking thing. Like, here's a list of people and why they want one and who they are. And now here's a list of people that have one to offer. And maybe we can kind of expedite this idea because they are cool cars. I think that they're, helping with the environment, obviously. And I think this could kind of help with the facilitation. I can also reference the car moving company. They did a fine job. Would I recommend them? Sure. They did a fine job. I'll find the name. I'll put it in there. To move the car, I think I referenced earlier, was about $900. So you got to take that into consideration. Or, yeah, you just drive the thing. If you don't have kids, then you have all the time in the world. All right. I think that we've talked enough about my little journey buying a Tesla. I just charged it earlier today at a supercharger, which was awesome. And we're driving down to Colorado Springs tomorrow to play at an indoor water park. So until next time, take care. Thanks so much for your time today. I genuinely appreciate it and hope today's episode was valuable. Don't forget to send this podcast to a friend who might benefit from the message, or leave comments in the places where you would typically leave comments for podcasts. And if you'd like to learn more, just visit trythepodcast.com, or you can shoot me a note by looking for the Contact Us section on the website. Life's pretty awesome. You just gotta try. I'll see you next time.